All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give it a few seconds here for people to log in, go grab some coffee or your lunch or some popcorn, and then we'll start. So, Mitch, how's your day going?
It's pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
good Friday so far. It's been a really hot week here for us. I think today's gonna be no different. So trying to stay out of the heat. But yeah, how about you?
Good here. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a hot one. We'll get some rain this weekend, so that'll be good.
That'll be nice. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of staying inside in the air conditioning this summer. So
Yep. Yep.
yeah, no, that's good. All right, so I guess we can get started here. So welcome everyone again. Thanks for joining us for this demo. We'll talk about AskGenius. We'll sort of cover the why. So why did we build AskGenius, and then go into how does it work. So to start, let's see here. Okay, so to start, so I'm Andrew Menke. I'm the senior product manager of AskGenius. We were going to be joined by Nick Pranger, who's the founder and CEO. He's stuck at the LA airport, so he wasn't able to join us today. So instead, we've got a nice treat for you. We've got Mitch Fisher, who's the customer success manager. So actually an upgrade from having to see Nick. We've got good old Mitch. So Mitch, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Happy to have you. So Mitch is going to help me with the webinar. He's going to help field some questions at the end. Speaking of questions, so if you do have any questions as we go through, please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can use the chat as well. If you have any immediate questions or if you want links to anything, use the chat. But for all of your questions, we're really only going to see it if it's in that Q&A. So please go ahead and utilize that. All right, so who we are. So we're Pranger Solutions Group. We're a fundraising consulting firm. All of us come from many different backgrounds in fundraising. We run full service annual appeals for large Catholic dioceses. We work closely with Blackbaud and even developed a few tools that you can find in the Blackbaud marketplace. One of which we will talk about today, AskGenius. So how did AskGenius start? Where did this start off? It all started with a research project that we ran a couple of years back. And what we did is we asked a lot of organizations for information on their annual appeals. And more specifically, we were looking for info on their pledge cards and what that looked like. What we found was, one of the things that we found was there are two kinds of pledge cards. One of them is an open-ended pledge card, and this will be familiar to you. So it's a pledge card that has a space where a donor can put in their gift amount. The second pledge card that we've noticed is a pledge card with ask amounts. So again, very familiar to you. It's these ask amounts are those series of numbers that you see on a pledge form. They're options for the donors to pick to give to your organization. We call them ask strings. So the series of number, we call them ask strings. People call them ask ladders, bump tables, ask arrays. So there's all sorts of different names to these ask amounts, but we use ask strings. So two different types of pledge cards. The next question was, which pledge card works best? So what we found is the open-ended pledge card is best used for your major donors. How I think of this is, so a lot of times I have not a lot of times, sometimes, very few times, I have a brilliant idea of doing something, maybe for my family, for my wife, to surprise them. But really it's my idea. So like mowing the lawn, like I get this idea, like, hey, I'm going to mow the lawn. I'm going to surprise my wife. She's going to come home and see the lawn look perfect. This is going to be great. So I'm getting ready to do it. And then all of a sudden I get a text from my wife saying, hey, can you mow the lawn? It kills me. So what once was my great idea now turns into my wife's idea. It's not as, still good to do, but it doesn't mean as much. Same thing with your major donors. If you provide them with an ask amount, it's no longer their idea, it's your idea. So you let your major donors come up with their gift to give to your organization. So that's sort of the idea behind an open-ended card. A card with ask amounts, that is best used for everyone else. So everyone else on your mailing list, you want to send them these ask amounts. So how do we set the perfect ask amount? So what we know, and during this research project, we know that ask amounts do matter. So the number that you put in front of the donor really does make a difference. This comes from studies in the nonprofit world, but also in the for-profit world, that the first number that you present to someone informs their decision on what they're going to do. So you see this a lot in negotiating. They start with a number, that perfect number they start with. So the same thing in the nonprofit world. These ask amounts do matter. The amounts that your donors see do make a difference. So how do we set the perfect ask amount? So this is a question we asked. So these organizations that we did this research with, they had 3 different methods that they would commonly use to set their ask amounts. The first method was to send everyone the same pledge card. So it's a one size fits all. All the donors receive the same ask amounts in the pledge card. The second method was to create a high, medium, and low pledge card. So some segmentation went into this. You would see your high level donors, send them a specific pledge card with ask amounts. Your medium donors, your low end donors, the same thing. So a little more segmentation in this one. And then method number 3 was to ask for 10% more than last year's gift. So again, a little more than sending the same thing to everyone else, but a little more similar to method 2. Okay, so these 3 different ways of setting ask amounts. Our next question was, okay, in these 3 methods, what data are you using to assign those ask amounts? So for method 1, you're sending everyone the same card. You're not using any of your data that's inside of your donor management system. So all of that is left aside. You're sending everyone the same amount. Method 2, you're using 2 different data points. So usually the appeal gift last year and the largest gift. Everything else not being utilized. The third method was to ask everyone for 10% more. This is actually, you're using less than method 2. You're just using appeal gift last year. Everything else not being used. So we saw this as an issue. So we have all of this data that lives inside our management system that we have spent so much time gathering and recording. It's just sitting there, not being used. We knew this wasn't right. There had to be a better way to set ask amounts that used all of this data. So what we found is method number 4, and this is what we came up with, was to set custom ask amounts for every household. And we did this by using all of the data for that donor. So from their appeal gifts to maybe capital campaign gifts that they made in the past, demographics, wealth research, using all of that to determine that ask amount for the donor. So PSG started doing this with our clients. We started creating these custom ask amounts. How did we do it? Pretty elementary. We went into Razor's Edge NXT. We exported all of the donor data into an Excel spreadsheet. So we started using this tool, AskGenius, for our company. So it was more for selfish reasons to use for our clients. But it then turned into something bigger. So now we branched out to other nonprofits. And we couldn't believe the results. We really couldn't believe it. So, for example, Stonehill Communities, they were one of our early adopters. They raised, they had 34% of their donors increase their giving, exceeding their goal by 120%. The Catholic Diocese of Dallas had their most successful appeal ever, raising an additional $1 million. And then another subscriber just recently, we got some data back. We saw the numbers go up. AskGenius helped them increase their donations for their appeal by $300,000. So what started as a tool just for our company, we extended it to others, and we just can't believe the results. So that's the idea. That's the why behind AskGenius, and why we created this tool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up the app itself and run through it. While I'm doing that, again, please use the Q&A button, and let us know if you have any questions. So if you just give me a second here, I'm going to pull up the app. All right, here we are. Mitch, do you see that okay?
Yep, that looks good.
All right, perfect. Okay, so so this is AskGenius. So once you log in, you create your account, you can go ahead and click on Create Ask Strings. So from here, if you have Razor's Edge NXT, we do have a direct integration through their API. So you can connect through NXT. If you use a different donor management system, we have a template you can use to export your donor giving information and donor contact information into this template, and then upload it to AskGenius and run it through and create those ask strings. So there's two different ways to go about it. I'm going to go through the NXT version. So I'll click on that button, and then I get to the environment page. So this is where you can add your new environment. If you go the Excel route, this is where you'll upload your Excel template with your donor information. So I'll sync my data. You do not have to stay inside of AskGenius while the syncing is happening. You can step away. We'll send you an email once that sync is completed. When it is complete, you'll go ahead and click on your environment or your Excel upload, and then go ahead and select an audience. So in NXT, you will want to create a constituent list, or as we call it, an audience list. So it's the list of donors that you are creating ask strings for. So it's your mailing list that you're going to send the appeal out to. So in NXT, you'll want to create a constituent list. And then once you've done that, you will see those constituent lists listed here. You'll go ahead and select it, and then go ahead and map your appeal. So right now, what's happening is we are, for those constituents on your audience list, for those donors, we're grabbing all sorts of information about them. So like total lifetime giving, total number of gifts, their greatest gift, things like that. But there are some things that we do not know about them. Specifically, they're giving to certain appeals. So say their appeal gift last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we're not able to just grab that information. You need to direct us, where do we find those recorded gifts. So if you're going through the NXT version, what we do is we will list all of your campaigns, appeals, and funds in this dropdown. And all of this will be familiar to you. So whatever you have inside of your NXT environment, those are the names you will see here under the campaigns, appeals, and funds. So it'll all look very familiar. So for this one, I'm looking for appeal gifts made last year. So I'm going to scroll down and look for annual appeal 2021. That's the campaign where I recorded the gifts for the appeal last year. I'll go ahead and select that campaign. As you can see, I click this drop down. It's going to show me all the appeals and funds within that campaign. And you can check out of those. If there's any appeals and funds that you don't want to utilize for appeal gifts made last year, you can go ahead and do that. Then I'll save and move on to 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I'll go down this list. The other thing is you want to map any gifts made to a major capital campaign. And I would say between now and 10 years ago, I would use that information. Any campaigns that were ran before 10 years ago, I would just keep out. It's old information. Life circumstances change. So I wouldn't include that. But any gifts to major capital campaign, you'll want to map those in as well. And then any gifts to a special event. So a golf outing or a gala, any gifts to those, you can map those in as well. And we're using all of this information to create those ask amounts. So the more information that you can provide, the more that you can map in, the better, and the more informed those ask amounts will at the end be. In the Excel upload, so if you're uploading a template, again, if you're not in NXT, You can forego this process. All of this is taken care of inside the template. So you're already giving us all of this information, so you won't have to map any fields. Okay, so once you're done with mapping your fields, one last thing. So if you have any soft credits, if you utilize soft credits in your reporting or your recording, you can go ahead and click on yes. That way, if a donor has a soft credit attributed to them, we are taking that into account when creating the ask strings. So once you're done, you'll go ahead and select the number of asks. Before you do that, it's going to ask you to name your appeal. The reason for this is if you need to step away or come back to this later, it's going to be in the system saved for you, so you don't have to start from the beginning. It will start up where you left off. All right, so I've mapped my list. I've named my appeal, and now I'm going to choose how many ask amounts do I want in an ask string. So there's a few different options. We have 3 to 5 asks in a string that are available. The reason for this is too many ask amounts presented to a donor isn't good. Giving too many options doesn't work. So you want to minimize those options for them to choose. Otherwise, it's overwhelming or leads to other things. So 3 to 5 is a good number. You'll go ahead and select the number of asks, and then also whether you want annual ask amounts, monthly ask amounts, or both. You'll decide that. So what's going to happen is at the end of this, you run your donor list through, we assign ask amounts, you're able to adjust them and review them, and then you export a spreadsheet with all of your donors and the ask amounts in them. So if you choose 4 asks in a string and the annual and the monthly, for each donor, we're going to give you the annual gifts in Excel and then also the monthly gifts. So then in turn, you can send that to your printer and they can then put it in the pledge form. So go ahead and set your ask amounts, and then you can move on to choosing a strategy. So you see a few different strategies here that you can consider, you can play with, you can go in and try a few of them. The first one being secret sauce. So the reason we call it secret sauce is this is what started us. So this is what we began with when we started doing this in Excel. This is the same formula. It's raised millions of dollars for our nonprofit clients. It's what it is. It's a moderate increase for donors at all levels based on past giving and wealth indicators. So I tell clients, subscribers for the first time, try out secret sauce if you're using this for the first time. We also have the strategy nice and easy, which is more conservative than secret sauce. So it's still, we're asking for donors to increase their gifts based off of previous giving, but it's not to the level of secret sauce. So it's a more conservative bump in the ask amount. The other one is swing for the fences, which is on the other side of that. It's more aggressive than secret sauce. It's still within the realm of appropriate asking. So we're not asking the donors for too much where you'll scare them away or make them upset. It's still asking for appropriate amount, but it is challenging them a bit more. So those are 3 to consider. One we just came out with was the new donor upgrade. So it's a take on the secret sauce strategy, but it aims to upgrade your newest donors before they establish that routine gift amount. So a donor that's given for the first time, say they gave $100 for their first gift, their entry-level gift, before they get in the routine of giving that $100 year after year, that's the best opportunity to then ask them for a larger gift. Because usually a donor, when they give for the first time, they're not giving to their capacity. They're giving a smaller ended gift. So this focuses on those new donors, upgrading them to a more substantial gift. So a new strategy that we came up with. There's a few others that we haven't launched yet. Join the club. I don't believe we've met yet, but you'll see those soon. In a couple of years, you're going to see tons and tons of different strategies. So right now we have 6 of them laid out here. You're going to see 10, 11, 12 of these. As we grow, as we start working with more nonprofits, we'll start creating more and more of these strategies. So right now we are going to go with secret sauce. So I will go ahead and select that strategy and then calculate the ask. All right, so this is the best part, I think the best part of this entire app. So all of that work that we did in Excel of going line by line, assigning ask amounts, all of that is being done for us. So this is where we pop the champagne, we sit back with our hands behind our head and relax. It is a glorious part of this process where AI takes over and just creates those ask amounts for us. So once the algorithm is processed, those ask amounts are created, what will happen is you will arrive at this, this appeal summary page. So this is your first look at the different ask amounts that your donors are being asked for. We separate them into different ranges. So for example, this list is going out to 27,000 constituents, 27,000 donors. If I drag my mouse over this $1,000 to $5,000, I'm seeing that about 6,000 donors are being asked anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000. So it sort of gives me an idea of what my donors are being asked for, just at a quick glance. And you can click into these and review these specific donors, and I'll do that in just a second here. Before I do, I want to cover a few more things on this page. So we have we also separate your donors into different types. So down here we have renewals and recaptures. We have special event only donors, campaign only donors, non-donors. So we'll take your list, we'll separate them into different types. This is a way for you to, if you're curious about how we're assigning ask amounts to these specific types, you can click into one of these tiles and see those specific donors. So I can click into the nonprofit the non-donors tile, and I'll see the ask amounts, how they were assigned. So it gives you a way to review those and become familiar with what you're asking your donors for. Another thing that we do, and we decided very on to do this for multiple reasons, but we will flag some of your donors for review. And it's based on some criteria, specific criteria. So such as, if they're being asked for $5,000 or above, we're going to flag them for review. If they're being asked for 3 times their appeal gift last year or $1,000 more than they gave last year, we're also going to flag them for review. The reason we do this is we don't want you to trust robots just yet. So it's going to take some time before we can just trust technology to take care of our business. We don't want you to treat AskGenius that way. There is still a human element that needs to go into this. So we want to make sure that you understand we're just using data, but you have institutional knowledge that you have on your donors that you can apply. So we want to make sure we flag some of these more spicy ask amounts for review. The $5,000 and above, we want to make sure that you're not sending, you're not just using AskGenius, sending it to the printer, and then a donor ends up with an ask amount of $100,000. We don't want that to happen. Those type of donors should receive an open-ended pledge card, like I had mentioned before. So this is just kind of a buffer between us and you sending it to the mail house, chance for you to review some of these ask amounts. All right, so when you're ready to review them, you can click into one of these tiles or one of these columns. I'm going to click onto the column of donors being asked for $1,000 to $5,000. Then I'm going to arrive at this review and edit page. So this is showing a bunch of companies up here. I'm going to scroll down until we get to some donors. So on this page, you're going to see on this list of anyone being asked for $1,000 to $5,000, you're going to see your donors that are in that category. You'll see their name, their constituent ID, or that unique ID number. You'll also see their ask amount. And what we show is the ask one. So the first ask amount is the most important one, and that's the one we want you to focus on, is that first ask amount. If you change the ask amount, we will do all the math for you. We'll change ask 2, 3, 4, and the monthly amounts. We'll do all that for you. We just want you to focus in on that first ask amount because that is the most important one. To change the ask amount, so as you're reviewing, if you want to change the level of giving they're at, you can go ahead and do that, or you can set their custom amount as well. You'll notice the ones that are red These are the ones that are flagged for review. So again, they fall into that criteria of they have a gift of 5,000 or above, or they're being asked for 3 times their appeal gift last year, whatever it might be. They will be in red. We'll show you why they were flagged for review. And then also we have an export location. So we have a primary list and we have a secondary list. So as I mentioned before, at the end of this, what we're going to do is we're going to send you an export of your donor mailing list with the ask amounts. And we're actually going to send you 2 different lists. So one's going to be the primary list. I think of that as a general list, so your general audience, and then the secondary list. And that can be a number of things. You could just simply leave it as anyone that's flagged for review, or you could treat them as your major donor list or some other segment. So it's up to you how you want to utilize that secondary list. But what you need to know is that anyone that is flagged for review is going to automatically be put into that secondary list for you until you move them over. So if you review this donor's ask amount of $1,000, you decide that I'm fine with that, I'm going to move them over to the primary list, you can go ahead and do that. And then they'll be put into that primary list and taken out of that secondary list. Another thing that we show you is the critical ask factor. So this is the factor that went into determining the ask amounts. So there's many different layers that we go through that the algorithm processes through to create that ask string for you. This blue button is going to show you what was it ultimately that factored into the ask amount. So it might be their appeal gift last year. It might be an appeal gift from 3 years ago. It might be their capital campaign gift or wealth research or their zip code or greatest gift. There's a variety of different factors. We're going to show you for each donor what it was exactly that went into creating that ask amount. If you want to review our math even further, so you're curious, how exactly did we come up with this ask amount? You can click into one of these blue tiles, and we're going to show you all of the math that went into creating that ask amount. So we'll show you the different layers that we go through step by step, and then ultimately, what was it that created that ask amount for your donor? So for this one, it was the greatest gift. So what happened was their greatest gift was $5,000. We divided it by 5. We have a cap in there where we won't go over $1,000 when looking at greatest gifts. So there's all sorts of different things that are in here in this algorithm. We wanted to make sure you could see this, that we're not just sending you a number and keeping from you how exactly we got to it. We want you to be able to see this math if you have any questions or want to learn more. So feel free to go in and look at why exactly we created that specific ask amount. We'll also show you any rounding that goes into it. So if we round a number up, we'll show you how that happened. And then we'll show you the other ask amounts. So ask 2 through 4 and the monthly breakdown, all of that is going to be in there for you as well. All right, so that's the review and edit page. So there's a lot of different things in here for you to make it easy to review and edit and make changes. So that's how that works. Once you're done with that, you'll go ahead and go back to the summary. I'll continue without saving. When you make your changes, you'll start seeing these numbers switch, go up or down, just depending on your changes. The columns will go up and down. Once you are done with reviewing your donors and what they're being asked for, you'll go ahead and prepare your export. So on this page, we're going to show you the different fields that will go into your export. So that's that primary list and that secondary list. What are the different fields that are going to be inside of there? And then any suggested fields that are in there as well. If you're an NXT user, this will be anything from NXT that you could pull into your list. If you're uploading an Excel document, you're not in NXT, these could be additional fields that you put into your Excel upload. And you can click out of these if you don't need them in your mailing list. For NXT users out there, what we also have, we have other fields that you could consider. So constituent codes, membership fields, and all of this is from your NXT environment. So this is all your data. So you can click into one of these. You can also select a custom field. So if you have any custom fields that you want to include on your mailing list, you can go ahead and find it here in this dropdown. So we'll show you all the different custom fields that you have in your NXT environment. The idea behind all of this is we want you to be able to, whether you're uploading an Excel document or you're in NXT using the NXT integration, we want you to be able to get this all done at once, done inside of AskGenius, and then you can send it to the mailhouse. We don't want you, and we want to avoid you to have to go back to your database, export another file, and then merge the two documents together before you send to the mailhouse. So we want to minimize the work that you put into this. So once you're done with preparing your export, you've decided which fields you want to add to your primary list and your secondary list. You'll go ahead and click on Export Now. And then we will send you an email with those that secondary list and the primary list. It'll be a link. You can click on that. It will download an Excel document to your desktop, which is your mailing list. From there, you can go ahead and send that to the printer, and you're all set. So that is how AskGenius works. What
That's
do you
awesome,
think?
Andrew. That was awesome. I love it. Yeah, great work. If anyone has any questions right off the bat, be sure to use the Q&A feature there. We can kind of field some questions and about anything at all about the presentation. I know there's a lot to it, but yeah, it's one of the things that when I first was introduced to the app myself, it helped me a ton to just go in and play around with it, because there's so many different options. Once you're signing so many different things you can do with it, and that helped me learn it a lot. And when I was finally able to kind of dive in and poke in, so it was really great. But
yeah, definitely. So yeah, and a lot of subscribers, so when they're using it for the first time, I'm in there with them. So if anyone has any questions once they start using AskGenius, you and myself, we're available to help them through that. But once you get the hang of it, there's a lot of fun things you can do with it. And I mentioned some of the strategies that we use or we have for you. We have a lot of clients that will do some A/B testing. So they'll send some of their donors one strategy, some another, and then learn what works better for their constituent group. So a lot of fun things you can do with it. We've had some clients that are running capital campaigns. They'll use that to create ask amounts. They do a little bit more work on their end as far as the back end. So once they run it through AskGenius in Excel, they might do a little bit more with it because it's a capital campaign, which is over 3 or 5 years. So, but yeah, lots of different fun things you can do with AskGenius, and lots of ways you can utilize it. So great point.
Definitely.
All right. Do you have some questions here?
Yeah, it looks like Mickey has a question about breaking down the data by years. It looks like we have the 3 years, and our examples are broken down by years. But what if they use the same CFA each year?
Yeah. So if I understand it correctly, so you use the same campaign for all of your appeals. So the same campaign funds and appeals for appeal last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. What I would suggest, so we have no way of looking at dates at this time, so we can't just pull by a date range. That's one thing that we're looking into doing in the future. But if you do have it set up that way, what I would do is I would probably use the Excel upload function. So instead of integrate or syncing your environment, your NXT environment, I would upload an Excel template. That way in NXT, you're able to divide appeal gifts by year. We just have no way of doing that right now within AskGenius, but there's certainly a way to do it. You would just have to use the upload function.
Definitely. Another question here, Andrew, if we have segments for a certain mailing, so like different letters or different codes for tracking purposes, would this tool pick up those codes and segmentation, or would you have to run the tool for each segment? How would that look?
Yeah, so it sort of depends. So if you have a constituent code within NXT, so if you have a constituent code in there, we are able to grab that code. So when you prepare your export, we can grab that code. So then you can segment it after you export through AskGenius. So that's one way. or if you have it as an attribute or a custom field, you can do that as well through AskGenius. If you can't, again, I would just like this this person said, I would just run different appeals through, so you can create different lists for those different segments, run them through individually. Hopefully it's not a lot of people. And then again, kind of falling back to that Excel upload. The last case would be maybe you upload as an Excel document, you're not using the NXT integration. That way we have a lot of different additional fields that you can utilize to help with that segmentation.
Very good. And then question about pricing. How does the pricing structure look?
Yeah, so let me, I'm going to share my screen again here. Okay, so this is what pricing looks like. So it's an annual fee, and it's based off of the number of records you have in your system. So what we look at, if you're on NXT, we will look at the number of constituents within your management system and base the pricing off of that. If you're uploading an Excel document, it's how many donors are you creating ask strings for, and it's an accumulative of how many unique donors. So if you use this multiple times over the year, we're adding unique donors. So we're looking at that constituent ID, and the price is based off of that. The reason we have it set up like this is we don't want to have to charge you for each appeal that you run through, or you run through AskGenius. We want you to use this as many times as you want through the year. So that's why it's an annual fee. It's based off of the number of records, so that you can use this as many times as you want for multiple different appeals, whether it's your annual appeal or annual fund, or it's a smaller appeal. We want you to be able to use this over and over again.
Cool. One of the things I like to point out too, Andrew, is with the app is obviously it makes it really easy to go through the process, like literally step by step, but there's also the support chat feature too. We're very much available to help with any questions as people are running through the app for the first, second, third time. And we're always happy to answer questions live while you're kind of working through different things in AskGenius too. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a chat bot, and we have video tutorials and different descriptions as you go through. So feel free to use those. We're always available. So that chat bot, we actually call it the Mitch bot. We named it after Mitch because that goes directly to him. Mitch is really good at answering right away. So you get Mitch with AskGenius. So anytime you have a question as you're running an appeal through, feel free to utilize that. We're happy to jump on a call with you, run through anything, even strategize. So if you have different segments that you want to run different strategies for, we can jump on a call with you and run through those with you and come up with the best strategy. So we have another question.
Yeah, Mickey said, what's the time frame for the setup? So once someone first reaches out to you until you get to the printer, what's that time frame look like?
Yeah, so it's almost automatic. So I mean, a lot of it is you have to create your list, so your donor list. So that's, how much time does that take for you to create? But the syncing process to exporting the ask amounts, I mean, that's almost automatic. The syncing process might take a little while, just depending on how many data points we're pulling. So if you're in NXT, you have to imagine we're pulling millions and millions of data points. So that syncing process takes a little bit, not too long though. So, but yeah, the rest of the process, it's pretty automatic. So when you subscribe, you sync your data, it's almost automatic. Now our clients do spend some time with reviewing the ask amounts. So spending some time in that review and edit page. So you'll have to factor that into, you might want an hour to sort of go through and make sure that you're not asking donors that you know about for the wrong ask amount. So you'll have to factor that in, but I mean, almost all of it is pretty automatic.
So if someone wanted to start using AskGenius today, could they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can go to AskGenius.com, click on the button that says get started now. And then you can start a free trial if you want, or you can subscribe. and then just get started right away. You can upload your list and get going.
Very cool. Any last questions from anybody? Feel free to use the Q&A. Happy to answer any last minute questions, but Andrew, you did a great job. Looks all good.
Thanks for joining us. And then everyone, so I will send out a follow-up email with a recording of this demo. So if you want to go back or share with your team, feel free to do so. I'll send that in a follow-up email. I'll send some other additional information for you, including our security promises. So understandably so, security is a huge issue, especially with donor data. So we take that very seriously. So I'll send you our promises, how to get started. And then also I'll send you a link to my calendar. So if you ever want to set up a time where we go through this this process, we talk about, what we talked about today in the demo, specifically for your organization, I'm happy to meet with you. So feel free to schedule a time on my calendar that works for you. Happy to run through this with you. So, all right, I don't see any more questions, so I think we'll call it a wrap. Mitch, again, thanks for joining us and for running this thing.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. We wish Nick Pranger all the best as he flies home to Omaha. Hopefully he gets home soon. And then everyone else, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Feel free to reach out anytime, and have a great weekend. So thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.